Her father-in-law took her entire salary every month and called it rent. But what happened next will shock you and change the way you see strength, courage, and true justice forever. Don't miss this. Nalina had always dreamed of a simple, peaceful life. She believed marriage would bring happiness, partnership, and support. When she married Tamuno, she thought she was stepping into that dream. Tamuno seemed kind, quiet, and respectful, everything she wanted. But she didn't know he was a man controlled by fear, especially fear of his father, Baba Enobi. The moment Nalina stepped into the compound of her husband's family, she felt the air shift. There was no warmth in the greetings, no joy. Baba Enobi's voice thundered from his chair as he watched her bring in her small bag of belongings. With no welcome, no blessings, he simply said, "In this house, nothing is free. Your monthly salary will be handed over to me. Consider it rent." Nalina froze. She thought she had misheard. Her heart raced. Her job at the boutique wasn't just her passion, it was her lifeline. She had plans. She wanted to support Tamuno, maybe start a small fashion line one day, save a little each month. Now this man, her husband's father, was demanding her entire salary like it was payment for shelter. She turned to Tamuno, hoping he would stand up and say something, anything, but he stood there quietly, eyes on the floor, hands behind his back. He didn't say a word. That silence told her everything. From that moment, Nalina understood she was not walking into a loving home, but into a prison where her dreams would be controlled. She wanted to speak, to protest, but her mother had taught her to be respectful, especially to elders. So she forced a smile and nodded, even though inside, her heart was breaking. Every morning, she woke early, prepared meals for the household, went to work, and returned late, only to hand over the money she earned with sweat and skill. Baba Enobi never thanked her. Instead, he counted the money carefully and locked it away. If she came home late from work, he would accuse her of being disrespectful. If she ever tried to keep a little for herself, he would call her greedy. The other family members, including Tamuno's younger brother, laughed behind her back, calling her the tenant in her own marriage. Tamuno again said nothing. He told her softly, "My father is old. Let's not upset him." But each time he said that, a part of her faith in him died a little more. Nalina endured in silence, but deep within, something began to grow, a quiet strength, a burning refusal to be broken. She did not know how, and she did not know when, but she made a silent promise to herself. This was not going to be her life forever. They could take her salary, her space, even her comfort, but they would never take her will. And so, Nalina smiled through the pain, waiting for the day she would no longer be the tenant, but the one who owned her future. Nalina kept her head down and obeyed, even though everything inside her screamed that it wasn't right. Each month she walked through the gate after a long day at the boutique, tired but determined, only to hand her full salary to Baba Enobi. He never said thank you. He would snatch the envelope, count the notes slowly, and walk away like it was his right. That money, earned through hours of cutting, stitching, and standing on her feet, disappeared into his pockets. He didn't use it for food or to improve the house. He spent it on bottles of palm wine, gambling with men at the local bar, and buying expensive clothes for his favorite son, Kumeji, who spent his days lounging and mocking her behind her back. Meanwhile, Nalina was treated like a ghost in her own home. She wasn't given a proper room. Instead, she laid a thin mat on the cold kitchen floor, curling up in the corner every night, while others slept in comfort. Her clothes were worn out, and no one noticed when they began to fade or tear. When meals were served, she was the last to eat, often scraping the bottom of the pot. Yet she never raised her voice. Her silence was not weakness, it was survival. What hurt the most wasn't Baba Enobi's greed or Kumaji's arrogance. It was Tamuno, the man she married, the man she thought would stand beside her. Each time she looked into his eyes, hoping for strength, she saw fear. He would mumble, "That's how things are here. Please be patient." Every time he said that, it felt like a knife turning deeper in her chest. She wanted him to fight for her, to at least speak up, but Tamuno had been raised in his father's shadow, and he couldn't break free. Nalina cried sometimes, silently, late at night, when no one could hear, but she didn't let the pain make her bitter. She still woke early, cleaned the compound, cooked without complaint, and walked with dignity to work. At the boutique, she smiled at customers, stitched perfect hems, and gave her best, because outside the walls of that house, she still had her pride. And in the evenings after work, Nalina found a small piece of happiness. In the backyard of a neighbor's house, A few young girls would wait for her. She had started teaching them how to sew. Simple things at first. She didn't charge a single coin. Their joy, their laughter, the way their eyes lit up when they learned a new stitch, that became Nalina's escape. For 1 hour each day, she wasn't a tenant or a victim. She was a teacher, a leader, and a woman of value. Though the struggle at home was heavy, Nalina carried it with quiet strength. She didn't fight with words or anger. She endured. But deep in her heart, a fire was building, slow, steady, and ready to rise. Nalina knew if she didn't fight for herself, no one else would. One night, while lying on the cold kitchen floor, she had an idea, small, risky, but powerful. The next day, she carefully took a needle and thread, opened the seam of her old handbag, and stitched in a tiny hidden pocket. She did the same on the inside of her wrapper. From that day on, each time Baba Inobi reached out for her full salary, she kept back a little, just 500 naira. It wasn't much, but it was hers. That small act of defiance gave her a sense of control, a taste of freedom. She didn't stop there. Her love for sewing had always been more than just a job. Late at night, while everyone in the compound slept, Nalina quietly climbed onto a stool near the back window, where she could catch a faint Wi-Fi signal from the neighbor's rooftop. She had overheard them mention their password once, and she memorized it. Carefully, she logged into a borrowed phone and began teaching online sewing lessons. She showed how to fix torn clothes, design simple skirts, and reuse old fabrics. Her face was never fully on camera, only her hands and voice. At first, very few people watched, but after one of her videos went viral in a sewing group, more and more people started following her. Slowly, messages began to pour in. Some women from nearby towns even asked if she could create custom pieces. She would wake up early, sew quietly before heading to the boutique, and pack the orders in brown paper. Her deliveries were done through a friend from the market who never asked questions. She was careful, always. If Baba Inobi or Kumeji saw even a hint of what she was doing, they would accuse her of stealing or disrespecting the household rules. So, she never spoke a word of it, not even to Tamuno. She didn't know if he would support her or betray her with silence again, so she kept her new world locked inside her heart. Each week, her savings grew, slowly but surely. She bought a second-hand bank passbook from a woman at work and opened an account in a different town under her mother's name. Every month, she added just a little, keeping the balance hidden inside her soul, like a precious jewel. She didn't spend any of it. She didn't boast. She only smiled to herself in the mirror when no one was watching, whispering, "One day, I'll be free." Her secret life gave her new energy. The same people who mocked her now unknowingly wore clothes designed by her hands. The girls she taught at work noticed she smiled more. Baba Inobi still barked commands and took her salary. Tamuno still avoided confrontation. But Nalina was no longer just surviving. She was preparing. Every coin she hid, every video she posted, every lesson she taught, it was a step toward the life she truly deserved. She said nothing. She waited. But deep inside, she knew change was coming. The boutique where Nalina worked quietly had been planning a big event, a talent exhibition to showcase the creativity of its staff. When Nalina heard about it, something inside her sparked. This was her moment. For weeks, she worked late into the night, using leftover fabric scraps and old materials nobody wanted. She turned rags into stunning designs, dresses made from patched denim, blouses from curtain trimmings, and skirts from discarded Ankara prints. Her hands moved with purpose, fueled by the hidden fire inside her. She didn't have expensive materials, but she had vision, and more importantly, she had heart. On the day of the event, the boutique was packed. Customers, fashion lovers, and even local press filled the small hall. When Nalina's collection hit the runway, the room went silent, then exploded in applause. Her designs were bold, different, and full of soul. The owner of the boutique stood up, shook her hand in front of everyone, and offered her a promotion, head designer. With the title came a new salary, 10 times what she had been earning. Nalina couldn't believe it. Her eyes filled with tears, not from the money, but from the recognition she had waited so long for. That night, she returned home smiling, thinking maybe now, finally, Baba Inobi would see her worth. She stood before him and said softly, "Baba, I was promoted today. They made me head designer," but his face remained blank. Then he nodded slowly and muttered, "Good. More rent for me." Her smile vanished. The next morning, Baba Inobi called everyone in the compound, family, neighbors, even people who barely lived there. With pride in his voice, he stood before the crowd and declared, "My daughter-in-law is now a big woman, but let me remind you all, she only got there because I allowed her to stay in my house. From now on, I will be collecting half her salary up front. That's the new rent." The people laughed. Not with her, at her. Word spread quickly around Zubaira. In the market, at the water point, even in church, people whispered behind her back, "That's the girl who pays her father-in-law to breathe." Children giggled when she passed, and even adults snickered as if she had become a walking joke. Nalina felt the weight of shame press on her shoulders like a mountain. She had worked hard, sacrificed, and finally achieved something, only to be mocked because of a greedy man's pride. Tamuno, as usual, said nothing. He stood beside his father, silent, head bowed. But Nalina didn't cry this time. She walked back inside, stood in front of the mirror, and reminded herself of the applause, the raised hands, and the way the owner had looked at her with pride. She was no one's joke. And though they laughed now, deep inside she knew this was just the beginning. That night, Nalina sat on the cold floor of the kitchen, tears rolling down her cheeks. Her chest felt tight, as if the world had closed in on her. She waited for Tamuno to return from the compound meeting, hoping, just hoping, that this time he would stand by her. When he stepped in, she rushed to him with trembling hands and tired eyes. "Tamuno," she whispered, "please, say something. This isn't fair. I've worked so hard. Can't you talk to your father? Just once. For me." Tamuno looked away and sighed, avoiding her eyes. "Nalina," he said, "my father is the head of this house. We must obey him. That's how things are done." In that moment, something in Nalina's heart snapped, not with anger, not even with hate, just silence, the kind that comes when love fades. She looked at Tamuno, really looked, and saw a boy in a man's body, a man who would never fight for her, a man who would always stand behind his father's shadow. From that night, Nalina stopped begging. She stopped hoping. She became quiet, focused, distant. She poured all her energy into her craft. Her late-night sewing classes, which she streamed online, began to gain attention. People across the Mbondo nation started tuning in, curious about the soft-spoken woman who taught with patience and passion. Within weeks, her page was flooded with views, comments, and requests. Nalina Threads Academy was born, an online platform that taught not just sewing, but dignity, discipline, and self-worth. Silently, Nalina registered the academy under her name. She opened a secret savings account and began putting money aside, preparing for a future far from the compound walls. Every stitch she sewed felt like a step closer to freedom. Every student who thanked her made her feel seen. And then came the day Baba Enobi knocked on her door, demanding the usual rent. But this time, Nalina didn't tremble. She stood tall, shoulders back, eyes clear. "Baba," she said, calm and steady, "your house has been repaid tenfold. Every coin I gave was out of respect, not debt. From today, I give you nothing. I'll live here only as a guest, until I move." The old man blinked, stunned. He wasn't used to her speaking with such firmness. But Nalina didn't wait for a reply. She turned around and closed the door behind her. No yelling, no tears, just peace. That night, while the compound whispered, Nalina sat by her sewing machine, light glowing softly in the corner. Her laptop pinged. Another 100 students had signed up. She smiled quietly to herself. They had mocked her, drained her, belittled her, but they had no idea she was building an empire from their ashes. And now, the countdown had begun. Nalina woke up early, before the sun could warm the rooftops of the compound. This day had lived in her dreams for months. Quietly, she folded her clothes into a small bag. Her hands were calm, but her heart beat with purpose. The only other thing she took was her beloved sewing machine, the same one she had used to turn pain into power. She had just zipped the bag when Baba Enobi stormed into the room. His face was red with rage. "Where do you think you're going with that bag?" he shouted, pointing his cane at her like a weapon. "You live here. You owe this family." Nalina stood and faced him, not blinking once. "No, Baba," she said firmly. "I owe you nothing. My days of paying to breathe are over." Tamuno rushed in, confused and panicked. "Nalina, don't do this," he begged. "Please, let's talk." But Nalina just looked at him with the same silence that had grown between them for months. "You had every chance to stand by me," she said quietly, "but you stood behind your father instead. Now, I'm standing for myself." Baba Inobi's voice rose again, louder this time, his hands shaking. You ungrateful girl. I made you who you are. I fed you, gave you a roof. Nalina didn't flinch. She looked him straight in the eyes and said, No, you stole from me. Month after month, you took my hard-earned money while I slept on your kitchen floor. You didn't build me, Baba. You tried to break me. But now, I take it all back. Then she picked up her bag and her machine and walked past him. He tried to block the door, but she didn't stop. She moved with quiet strength, her footsteps steady and sure. Tamino called her name one last time, but she didn't turn back. As she stepped out into the open courtyard, the neighbors watched. There was silence at first. Then one woman clapped, then another, and another. Soon, the whole compound echoed with applause. Some smiled with pride, others looked in awe. For the first time, Nalina wasn't the girl who handed over her salary or ate last. She was the woman who walked away with nothing but her dignity, her dreams, and her sewing machine. She didn't need to take furniture or gold. Her hands were her wealth, and her mind was her map. She climbed into the small taxi waiting outside. The driver asked, Madam, where to? She smiled softly and replied, Umaki City, my new beginning. As the car pulled away, she didn't look back, not once. The compound grew smaller in the rear mirror, but her future stretched wide ahead. She had lost years. She had cried silently, but now she was free. And freedom to her was worth more than anything Baba Inobi could ever take. Nalina's new life bloomed faster than she ever imagined. After moving into her small studio apartment in Umaki City, she poured her energy into building Nalina Threads Academy. What began as midnight classes online grew into a full-time business. In just 6 months, she expanded into 3 major cities, Umaki, Zinga, and Belayo. Her designs weren't just clothes anymore. They became symbols of survival, strength, and freedom for countless women. National television channels invited her to share her story. Her calm voice and humble smile touched millions. She didn't speak in big words or fancy slogans. She spoke from the heart. She told the truth. How she once lived on a kitchen mat, gave her salary away, and taught children sewing just to feel joy. How she hid coins in her wrapper just to survive. Her story lit fires in the hearts of women who had suffered silently, just like she once had. Soon, letters started pouring in, from housemaids, widows, market women, and girls in remote villages who said, You gave me hope. Nalina took every letter seriously. She began offering scholarships for young girls in villages across Mbondo Nation. She provided sewing kits, smartphones, and training material. She paid for transport and even offered food stipends so the girls could learn without stress. Her academy became more than a school. It became a safe place, a second chance for those who had been ignored or mistreated. Then came the biggest honor yet. One warm afternoon, Nalina received a letter from the royal palace. The Queen Mother of Mbondo region had heard of her. She was to be awarded the Mbondo Medal of Progress, a rare honor only given to those who had changed lives through personal sacrifice. Nalina stood on the grand stage, wearing a gown she made herself. As the Queen Mother placed the medal around her neck, tears filled Nalina's eyes, not from pride, but from gratitude. In every interview, when journalists asked, How did you do it? What pushed you to this height? She always gave the same answer. My pain gave birth to my purpose. She never hid her story. She didn't pretend she had it easy. She made it clear. She rose because she chose not to stay silent, not to stay broken. Even as her face appeared on billboards and magazines, she never forgot where she came from. She didn't seek revenge. She didn't send anyone back to Baba Inobi's house with warnings or shame. She let her success speak, and it spoke loudly. Her name became a song of hope in the villages. Mothers named their daughters Nalina. Young girls whispered her name before going to sleep, dreaming of building something of their own one day. She became a symbol, not just of fashion or business, but of what a woman can become when she decides to fight, even in silence, and rise, even from nothing. Nalina, the girl who once slept in a kitchen, became a legend. While Nalina's star rose brighter every day, things took a different turn for Baba Inobi. His once powerful voice became weak, his steps slowed, sickness crept into his bones, and for the first time, he felt helpless. The same man who controlled everyone with fear now struggled to climb down his doorstep. His health grew worse, and yet no one cared enough to help. His pride had burned every bridge. Kumeji, his favorite son, the one he gave everything to, money, fine clothes, and comfort, stole the last savings Baba Inobi had, and ran away. He didn't leave a note, no goodbye, just vanished across the border one night, never to be seen again. The betrayal crushed Baba Inobi's spirit. He had built his entire world around Kumaji, and now that world had crumbled. Tamuno, who once remained silent under his father's command, lost his city job after his company downsized. With nowhere else to go, he returned to Zubera village, tired and broken, but there was nothing left for him there. The compound that once held pride and strength had turned cold and lifeless. The neighbors who once feared Baba Inobi now whispered behind his back. They remembered how he shouted at Nalina, how he mocked her, and how he collected rent from her salary. No one stepped forward to help him now. No one offered food or support. Baba Inobi, once the king of the compound, became a ghost in his own home. With no money to pay for medicine, no sons to care for him, and no respect left, Baba Inobi was eventually thrown out of his own compound by the local council. His debts had piled up. The land he stood on no longer belonged to him. He had nothing. Then, one hot afternoon, Nalina received a short, unexpected message from a childhood friend still living in the village. The message said, "He is sitting by the roadside, begging." At first, she froze. She read the message again, making sure she understood. Baba Inobi, the man who once took every coin she earned, who made her sleep on the kitchen floor and eat after everyone, was now on the roadside with a rusted bowl in his hand. She closed her eyes for a moment. So much emotion rushed through her. Sadness, pain, disbelief, but also peace. Life had shown Baba Inobi the same silence and cruelty he had once shown her. Nalina didn't say a word to anyone about the message. She didn't reply. She didn't celebrate. She simply got up, folded some new uniforms for the girls at her academy, and returned to her work. Her hands moved with purpose. Her heart steady, because she knew something very clearly now. Karma doesn't shout. It arrives quietly when no one expects it, and settles the scores in full. Baba Inobi's fall wasn't her victory. It was just life doing what it always does, teaching hard lessons to those who never listen. Nalina's success had made her world change, but she never forgot the pain she endured. One afternoon, she decided it was time to face the past once and for all. Dressed in a sharp, elegant outfit that reflected the power she had earned through years of struggle, she drove down to Zubera. Behind her followed a convoy of cars. Her new life was undeniable, a clear sign of how far she had come. The villagers whispered as she passed, some with respect, others with envy. She found Baba Inobi sitting on a worn bench near the dusty road, coughing weakly, his frame frail and small. The man who once ruled with an iron fist now looked like a shadow of himself, beaten by time and sickness. His eyes caught hers immediately, and a flood of emotions crashed over him. Without warning, tears ran down his wrinkled cheeks as he bowed his head. "Forgive me," he sobbed. "I was greedy. I thought you were beneath me. I treated you like dirt, but I was wrong." Nalina stood silently, her heart pounding, but her expression calm. She thought of all the times he demanded her hard-earned money, the humiliations she endured, and how her own husband stood by without lifting a finger. Yet here she was, in control now. Slowly, she knelt down beside him, lowering her voice to a soft whisper. "I've already forgiven you," she said gently, "but I'll never forget." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small parcel, a few days' worth of food, some medicine for his cough, and an envelope thick with cash. She handed it to him firmly. "This is not rent," she said clearly. "It's mercy." Baba Inobi's hands trembled as he accepted the bag. The proud man who once demanded every penny was now the one receiving kindness from the woman he once controlled. He looked up at her with a mix of gratitude and shame, unable to speak. Nalina didn't wait for his response. She stood, adjusted her jacket, and turned away. Each step she took was steady and sure, walking out of his life with the dignity she had fought so hard to reclaim. Behind her, the villagers watched, some whispering, others silent, witnessing the powerful moment of justice and grace. She didn't return to the village that day. Instead, she drove back to her apartment, to her sewing academy, and to the future she was still building. Not for Baba Inobi, but for every woman who had been silenced and forgotten. Her story was no longer just about pain or survival. It was about rising, forgiving without forgetting, and giving back on her own terms. Baba Inobi had his mercy, but Nalina had her freedom. Nalina's journey had transformed not just her life, but the lives of thousands around her. After moving into her new studio apartment, she poured every bit of energy into growing her sewing academy. She renamed it the House of Freedom, a place where women from all walks of life came to learn skills, gain independence, and rebuild their futures. Widows who had nowhere else to turn found hope here. Young girls from struggling families learned not only to sew, but also to dream beyond their circumstances. Nalina became more than a teacher. She was a mentor, a symbol of resilience and empowerment. She worked tirelessly, offering scholarships and free classes, making sure no woman who wanted to rise was left behind. Slowly, word spread across the cities and villages. Women who once felt trapped by poverty, marriage, or cruel family members now stood tall because of her guidance. Her fashion academy grew bigger and more influential, stretching into multiple cities. Designers, entrepreneurs, and students came to learn from her. She created a community where success wasn't just about money, but about reclaiming dignity and pride. Years passed, and Nalina's hard work caught the attention of national leaders. One bright day, she was honored with the prestigious title Queen of Threads. As she stood on the grand stage before a cheering crowd, the spotlight shining on her, she didn't talk about riches or fame. Instead, her voice carried the weight of every struggle she had faced. "They took my salary and called it rent," she said clearly, "but I turned it into a legacy they can never collect." The audience listened in awe. She wasn't just telling her story, she was sending a powerful message to everyone who had been pushed down, silenced, or controlled. Nalina showed that what others use to suppress you can become your strongest foundation. With quiet strength, patience, and hard work, success can rise from pain and injustice. She urged the crowd to stand tall, to keep faith even when no one seems to care, and to let their achievements speak louder than any greed or cruelty thrown their way. Nalina's journey was proof that freedom and power come not from money given or taken, but from the courage to fight for oneself and to never give up. Her story became viral, inspiring women everywhere. The House of Freedom continued to grow, training thousands more, creating ripple effects far beyond the city's borders. Nalina had become a true queen, not just by title, but by the impact she made. Her legacy was clear. Even when life tries to hold you down, your spirit and determination can create a future that no one can take away. If you ever feel trapped, silenced, or undervalued, remember Nalina's story, how she turned pain into power, how she transformed what was meant to hold her down into the very foundation of her success. Life may try to steal your dreams, your voice, or your hope, but your spirit is stronger than any obstacle. Just like Nalina, you can rise, stand tall, and build your own legacy, no matter how hard the journey seems. Never let anyone make you feel less than you are. Your struggles can be the spark that lights your way forward. When you believe in yourself, work quietly but consistently, and refuse to give up, success will come. Your story matters, your dreams matter. And just like Nalina, you have the power to rewrite your destiny. If this story touched your heart, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Like this video to show your support for those who are fighting silent battles. And if you want to see more inspiring stories that lift you up and remind you of your worth, subscribe to our channel. Together, we can create a community where strength, hope, and courage grow every day. Thank you so much for watching. Your support means the world, and we are honored to be part of your journey. Keep believing, keep rising. Your time to shine is coming.